What are 3 pieces of content you can make from every podcast episode? It may sound like a lot of work, but it's easier than you think. It is time for Build That Podcast, where we will discuss how you can use a podcast to grow your business and expand your influence. I'm your host, Eric Rutherford. Today we'll answer the question, what are 3 pieces of content you can make from every podcast episode? Having your podcast as a long-form content piece gives you flexibility as well as control. No one can take the podcast away from you, and it's evergreen, meaning it's always available. At the same time, you can take the podcast and repurpose it into many different pieces. Repurposing content helps a ton because it's a way to multiply your time and energy. So one action multiplied lets you do a lot more work and reach a much bigger audience. So the first 2 pieces of content that we're going to discuss use the transcript from the podcast. Now, the transcript is easy to get. I've used a couple of different tools for transcripts. Both work really well. The first is otter.ai. It's frequently promoted for recording and transcribing meetings, but I find it works great for podcasts. And the second tool is Descript, descript.com. It's a fabulous tool, not only produces the transcript, but also lets you edit the transcript. While you edit the audio and video, it does all of that at the same time. So it's a really cool tool. So once you have the transcript, the first piece of content you can create is an article or blog post, depending on how you call it on your website. You can take the transcript of the podcast and either summarize it or simply post it on your website with a title and a short description. This is another helpful long-form piece that people can find via web search, and it really helps show your authority, especially from your website. Make sure that when you do, link to your podcast within the document, and you can also take key points and bullet point them at the top so people can scan and search easily. Okay, so that's the first piece. Second piece of content is text for your newsletter. So your weekly, bi-weekly, monthly newsletter that you email out to your email list, you can take pieces, snippets from your podcast episode, include it into your newsletter for various information purposes. You can use it in a variety of ways. You don't have to put that information in that same week's newsletter. You can save it for later, next year, whenever, but it's a great repository of information. And it's important to remember people who receive your newsletter may not listen to your podcast, so it's a neat way to link to your podcast as well and direct those people there. Okay, so we've talked about blog post or article. We've talked about adding it to your newsletter. The third piece, you can use the podcast and turn it into a YouTube video. So YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world behind Google, so your content is searchable through it. Now, a lot of people go to YouTube for podcasts and they just listen to videos. They don't necessarily watch the videos. So you don't have to have a video recording of your podcast to put it on YouTube. You can, but you don't have to. You can put audio recordings up there with a tool like repurpose.io. It allows you to post audio only or audio and video just straight to YouTube. I've used repurpose.io to upload audio podcasts to YouTube directly from my RSS stream. I didn't have to do anything. You can set it up automatically to post once your podcast is available. And make sure to add the podcast link to your YouTube notes. Okay, bonus use for transcripts. Take your transcript through either Otter or Descript, identify the key points of the episode by when they occur in the timeline, and then provide the time mark in the podcast notes along with the key points. That way, if people want to see key points and where they are in the podcast, they can do so at a glance. You can also dump that into your YouTube video notes. And another option is take the transcript and either put a summary into your YouTube or just dump the whole transcript. It really helps with the search. So 3 options plus bonus. Next week, we'll look at 3 things podcasts can do that other content can't. So you want to make sure you check us out next Wednesday. If you want to learn more about how to use podcasts to grow your business and expand your influence, make sure to sign up to our newsletter. The link is in the show notes. Also, we will be launching a course later this spring. More information to come. Lastly, if you have questions or comments, you can DM me on Twitter. I'm at rfordej, or email me at eric@straightforwardmg.com. Remember, use podcasts to grow your business and expand your influence.